Salutations, everyone, and thank you for watching episode 60 of DiabeticRadio.com. In today's episode, I would like to talk about how to figure out the best foods for you without solely depending on a diabetic cookbook for each and every meal, or without having to depend on somebody telling you, I need to know what to eat, I need to know what to eat. There is no such thing as diabetes food. The same healthy foods that we should be eating more of, regular people who don't have diabetes are eating. There's no difference. Anybody, pretty much anything that is considered healthy, diabetics can eat. But even then, that's subject to personal, opinion, because sometimes, you can eat something that's a little high in carby, in terms of fruits and vegetables, but it has a lot of nutritional benefits, so, but anyway, if you have any kind of special health conditions, make sure that you discuss what I talk about in this video with your doctor, just to make sure that everything is okay. Alright, so let's get started. I see diabetes as a lot like driving a car. You have to watch in a small 3-second, 3 seconds at a time. You have to watch what's in front of you, what's behind you, what's to the left, and what's to the right of you. You have to watch for pedestrians. You have to watch for animals that can get in the way of the car while you're driving. You have to watch 5 miles ahead of you to make sure that you can predict any possible accidents. You have to watch for traffic lights, signs. You have to watch for your what do you call those counters. You have to watch how much gas you have, and all of those things. Be mindful of your brakes, and make sure that's in working order, etc., etc. Well, diabetes is a lot like that, and we're in a short period of time. You have to be aware of a lot of things. You have to be aware of the amount of food that you eat, your calories, your carb intake. You have to make sure that you're measuring your insulin, take it correctly, constantly check your blood sugar, make sure that you're not going into a dangerous hypoglycemic situation. And sometimes you're stumped. Sometimes you can eat the same kinds of food, the same exact food, and your blood sugar would be entirely different. We have to deal with, in addition to that, dealing with the diabetes police, giving you all this information that most people don't really understand about diabetes. So there's a lot that we have to deal with. A lot. But diabetes is certainly doable. So, first of all, let's start off with answering one important question. What are calories? A lot of us don't really take time to really try to understand what calories is. And calories is basically is energy, really. Energy that can be burned or used as energy. Okay, where is that energy coming from? Our carbs, believe it or not, our fat. Some energy comes from the fat, and our proteins, mostly. So if you were to add, I want you to go ahead, take any food. Go ahead to go into your food shelf, and I want you to take any food, and I want to show you how to calculate the calories. And this is important because, I'll tell you why later. Go ahead and just get any food from your food shelf, a can of whatever, right? And this is what I want you to do. I want you to look at the total number of calories for one portion, right? Whatever it is, okay? So you look at that and you write that down. Now, here's how you calculate that total, right? You're going to take the grams of fat, the total grams of fat, and you're going to multiply that by 9. So that means that for every gram of fat, there's 9 calories, right? Give or take. Now, I want you to look at the protein, and you're going to times whatever the amount of grams of protein that food has, and you're going to times that by 4. Okay? And then you're going to take the total carbohydrates, and you're going to times that by 4. And you're going to add them together, and you should get close to the total amount of calories in whatever food that you've gotten from your food cabinet. Okay? Now, usually it's not any greater than 4 or 6 calories. And the reason for this is, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but if let's say carbohydrates, if something is like less than a gram, so if it's actually 0.99, right? Legally, a company is allowed to say 0 grams of carbs. Same thing with fat. Okay, so sometimes you're going to get that 4 or 5 or even 6 calorie difference. It's a round off. Okay, so I wanted you to do that exercise for a very important reason. People don't realize that calories are a derivative of the fat, calories, and protein. Now, why this is so important, I'll tell you why. I'll use my favorite example with the pancakes, right? Pancakes for McDonald's, it's I forgot what the total calories was. I think it was 300, 350. Now most people say, oh, that's good. That's good. 350 calories, great. Eat that, blah, 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 whatever, tastes good. But what most people don't realize is that a good 60 to 70% of those calories come from the carbs, which isn't good either, because those carbohydrates will eventually affect your triglycerides, and which will in turn affect your cholesterol, despite the fact that it's lower in calories. Now, I'm not suggesting that pancakes are bad and you should never eat it again. I'm just saying that it's not a food that should be eaten every day, in my opinion. So that's very important. You can't just look at the calories and say, oh, that's good. It is best to be familiar with what's in that food, because it's particularly when you go out to eat out in restaurants, because they would have the calories now, which is a great thing. I'm not knocking the calories, but still many restaurants don't have the fat content, the protein, and the carbohydrate content, which kind of makes it difficult. Okay, you need to know whether there's a possibility of that low calorie being high in carbs, or high in fat, And the other important issue is, before I forget, I don't mean to get off track, but there's a common misconception that people have, especially with diabetics, is I hear a lot of people say, I cut out carbs. First of all, everything that I can think of has some form of carbs in it, with the exception of lettuce, iceberg lettuce. Many dietitian calls those free food, and they call it free food because they have almost no carbs. But the other unfortunate thing is, lettuce also barely has any nutritional value either. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So I say this to say that the body is not designed to not function without carbs. We need a little bit of carbs, because the carbs, the body can break down carbs much more quickly and faster than trying to break down proteins into carbs or fats into carbs. And that is one easy way to get yourself into ketoacidosis, whether you're diabetic or not. Because now, if you take in too little carbohydrates, the body's going to start looking for other sources of energy, and it's going to start breaking down our protein. So if you're eating a whole bunch of protein, figuring, oh, it's good, it's building my muscle and all this and that, but if you're taking almost no carbs, then it defeats the purpose. It's retarded. It defeats the purpose, because the body's going to start breaking down all that protein to turn it into carbohydrates or energy, because you're eating too little carbs. Now, and again, I'm not judging anybody, but I'm just giving you some facts. It's not good, neither is it safe, to cut out carbs totally. Carbs are not the enemy. We need carbs to survive. We just have to limit the amount of carbs that we eat. And how to figure that out depends on the individual. No one should be telling somebody, that's too much carbs. That's too much carbs. Because depending on your activity level, your age, depending on several factors, would make a difference on whether or not, whether a person needs lower amount of carbs or higher amount of carbs. Same thing for the protein. Okay, so we have to try to learn how to look at the entire food label and not focus on one thing. And I know it's easier because sometimes, diabetes and trying to figure out what food to eat can be maddening. It can be literally maddening and confusing. But going by this method, what I'm telling you, would be a whole lot easier. Okay, is to you look at the total. You only want to focus on. You want to look at the ingredients too, but right now, what impacts your body the most, Okay, as diabetics, we have to look at the overall, the calories, and underneath those calories we have to look at our carb intake, our protein intake, and we have to look at our fat intake. Okay, so something that's low in calories doesn't necessarily mean that it won't be high in fat, which is also unhealthy. Okay, and also, as I've used the example of the pancake, just because it's low in calories doesn't mean that it's not oozing with, carbs all over the place. Okay, and unfortunately, because of the mixture of protein in that pancake, the carbs are released much more slowly, even though it breaks down faster. Yet it's slower because of the protein, and unless you're constantly moving around and exercising and really moving your body, your blood sugars will be high for a significant amount of time because of all that sugar that you're taking. And the other thing to keep in mind, that we need to get away from the sugar, carbohydrates, and sweets. Carbohydrates is carbohydrates. You can eat rice, a lot of rice, and would be just as bad as drinking 3 bottles of soda. Okay, a lot of people still get this, well, I don't want to drink that because it has a lot of carbs, but not paying attention to some of the other things that you may be intaking that would have a lot of carbs. Again, it's important to not only look at the carbs, it's also important not to only look at the calories. You have to look at the whole. And it's also important to know to live your life. What do I mean by that? I mean that if you're at your granddaughter's birthday party and they're having cake, it's okay to have a little piece of cake. It's okay. Your A1Cs is not going to shoot up, to 13% just by eating that one cake, But if you eat cake every day for 3 months, then expect to have your A1Cs through the roof. It's about balance. It's important to have balance, And people who are not diabetic, it's important for you not to consistently judge what a diabetic eats, because you don't know what regimen they have, Someone may say, well, I know I chose to eat something that was a little carby, but I'm going to do some exercise and I'm going to just eat salad in the night, or vice versa. Or, and even those of us who are insulin dependent, we also want to be careful that we don't abuse our insulin either. Okay, just because we have insulin, that we inject insulin and we can handle the carbs that we take in, that doesn't mean that we should eat it every day. It's important to understand that insulin works in the same way whether you make enough on your own or whether you are injecting that insulin. Its job is to get those nutrients into the cell so they can be used. And if not, insulin helps those nutrients get stored as fat for later use. Okay, so like anything else, if you eat more food, you're going to gain weight. Same thing when whether you're injecting insulin or not. So it doesn't take away the fact that we still have to monitor ourselves and get ourselves in a habit of monitoring ourselves, and yet still being able to live our lives without having diabetes control us. I do see a difference. We control the diabetes, not have the diabetes control us or take away our lives. You can eat whatever food you want and still have a balance. You don't want to sit there and not get the benefits of eating peaches or have the benefits of drinking carrot juice because somebody say, "Ooh, too much carbs. Ooh, you should eat that. You should eat that." And yet some of these same people would eat 4 and 5 cups of rice, 150, 200 carbs even, but they're telling you can't have one piece of fruit because it has too much sugar, not realizing that rice is more damaging than that piece of fruit that a diabetic is eating. So let me get off my rant. I didn't mean to do that, but I wanted this to be a short video, so I won't continue any longer. I hope that I've given you some important pieces of information, and I look forward to doing my next video. Love you guys. Bye.